And we are back with Hippie Torrales. And here's one thing, Hippie, I like to do on this show where I've been interviewed as well. I don't like to step on you guys. That's why I have you really speak, because none of us get a chance when we're interviewed to really explain it. And we need you to explain. And I feel that moment coming where the birth of Abe's Disco, and you're going to tell us about that, because we got to go right from I'm just about ready to pick up from that point all the way to now. So everyone buckle in, people. This is where the garage of New Jersey begins. And the architect behind that is right now here. He's going to tell you about it. So, because you mentioned Abe's Disco, I'm waiting to hear. First of all, explain, number one, what the place was, because I remember you were dancing at your sister's wedding.
I was the DJ.
No, I'm just saying, but talk about the transition.
Yeah.
Al Murphy, the whole, Shelton, everybody. It's your thing. Right. So please.
So what happened? The way it started was we had opened Docs, and Docs opened in '76, and what happened is I was playing there, and we had built up. Docs was actually the precursor to Zanzibar. The crowd that went to Zanzibar and the garage and all that from Jersey went to Docs. That's where they went. It was the equivalent of the crowd that went to Better Days with T. Scott. That small club, that's what Docs was in Jersey. It was that same kind of equivalent, basically, pretty much. So I had built my base there, which was the audience they wanted for Zanzibar. So I started working at Abe's, the downstairs, before they even opened Zanzibar. I started working at Abe's like a year and a half before they opened Zanzibar. And I was working down there. I was doing the off nights. Gerald T was the house jock. He would do the weekends. And we had some other people playing in between. Mumbles, I think, used to do. There was a DJ named Mumbles.
Oh, I remember Mumbles. I forgot about him. Wow. Yeah, I remember that.
We do a salsa night on Thursdays at there. So we had a different job. Even, believe it or not, a lot of people don't know, but Freddie Sannon from Timmy Regisford fame and Shelter Records and Shelter the Club, he used to play there. Freddie Sannon used to play at Abe's also with us. So what we had was, I was doing that, and then for some reason, Miles wanted to do something with the upstairs ballroom. Gerald T had mentioned to him and said, listen, you can turn that ballroom into a club. He said, I'm making money with it now. Why? He said, well, no, you can make a lot more money, really, seriously. So he thought about it. He said, oh, maybe I should. So he already had Richard Long that did the sound system. So Richard Long already had done the first floor. He did a great job. They had their dance floor on the first floor of Abe. It was a lit up dance floor, would light up, but the sound system was all Richard. It was amazing. For a small club, it was amazing. And then Richard told him, well, listen, if you want to do this, I'm going to take you to New York to show you a club so you can get an idea of what I can do. So he took him to the garage. And when he took Miles to the garage, Miles was like, oh, it's over. It's over. He's like, I want to bring this to Jersey. So then Miles said, no, do what you got to do. I want to bring this sound system to Jersey. So then Richard Long was in. Industrial Lighting, I think, was the one that did the lightings at the time for us. They came in, they did the light show. I mean, he spent the bucks, and he did it right. I mean, before it was a ballroom. He used to rent it out for weddings and all kinds of stuff on the second floor of the Lincoln Hotel. So then they took it, they gutted it out. They did everything they had to do. I think a little bit over 6 months they were finished, actually, believe it or not, a little bit, because he had the money. He had everybody come in. He had electricians, carpenters, sound guys, lighting, everything all working together. Let's get this done, basically, pretty much. So it got finished, and when we first were going to open, it was going to be Thorne's turntables in there. But Richard Long just got into modifying the 1200s. So he said, no, let's put the 1200s in there. So when we first opened, opening day, we had the modified 1200s. That's what we had. We had 3 1200s. We had the RLA crossover. We had the Bozak mixer. We had the DBX boombox. We had the Technics reel to reel. Pretty much, we had a cassette also. So we had the setup pretty much.
Can I stop you for a second?
Yeah.
Tell everybody, which 1200 version did you have in the opening?
The first one, the one that worked. He modified them. He modified them. So they weren't like the first ones. And what he did was, I'm not sure if it was before all the other marks came. Mark II, Mark.
It was the one with the two pots, the two round pots. Everybody, we used to call them 1200 A's. They were never A's, but that was the original name, 1200.
Correct.
Or the one with the slider pitch. He's talking. Exactly. That's why everybody know that. They're going, oh, he had MK2s? No, they weren't out yet.
So the first of all, he modified them. He took out the quartz on them, so then you can slow them down, speed them up with your finger without a problem.
Yeah. Tell everybody why he took out that quartz lock, because
when it was quartz locked, you can't slow it down, or speed it up. It won't do it. It's locked in. It jerks. Yeah, exactly. It jerks. You're fighting with the turntable. So by taking that out, basically it allowed it to become closer. It wasn't like a belt-driven turntable, but it was closer to a belt-driven turntable like a Thorn. You could slow it down, you could speed it up without a problem. That's what it was, basically.
That's funny, because when I went there first time, I saw Thorns in there, but I'll let you talk about that. Go ahead.
Yeah, exactly. So then opening night was August 29th, 1979, right? So I'm the opening jock. I opened it up. And when I go there, they already had the first floor open. And Gerald T was playing on the first floor. And we had WNGR doing a live remote. NBC TV, came in, recording and stuff like that. And Hippie, they went all out. They spent money on their advertising. They really went out on the advertising.
Hippie, is that Gerald T. Gordon downstairs?
Yeah, Gerald. Yeah, exactly.
That worked with Tony, right? All those years with the Kiss show. Everybody, Gerald.
He was the house jock to the club.
I want people to know that
from the very beginning. He was there before even Miles bought the club. He was there pre-Miles, basically. You know what I mean? So that's what it was. And he kept him on, and he was the house jock forever there. Anyway, so he was playing downstairs, and we had NJR doing the thing. So when I go upstairs and start playing, I mean, it's already, the line is down the block. You know what I mean?
Jesus.
Down the block. And people
your heart's going like this.
Yeah. Right? So I come in, I go upstairs, you know what I mean? And they start letting people in because, they have to open the gate downstairs. It was gated. So they open it, and they're coming in, and they're pouring in and pouring in and pouring in. It's like filling up quite quickly and stuff. And I'm already started playing. And then I have one of the Bell from Kool and the Gang, Bell, I forgot his name. One of the
Ronald Bell, or
Ronald Bell. He was in the booth with me. He came to hang out. Tasha Thomas was hanging out.
Shoot Me With Your Love. Wow.
Yeah, she was just hanging out. And then Joe Robinson was there, and he was like, "Listen, I have this record that we only played a week ago in Texas. It hasn't been played anywhere in the New York area. We'd like you to play it and stuff." And Gerald told me he had played it earlier downstairs. He said, "Yeah, it's a good record, man. You can play it." So
Hippie, wait a minute, hang on, Papa, 1 second.
Yeah.
People who never went to Zanzibar, because I want you to explain it.
Yeah.
How was it that you walked in the club? You went, because I remember you go downstairs, and you didn't open upstairs for a while.
Right.
So what was the club politics? Why did they do that?
Well, what they did was the first opening was on the outside of the building on the side, okay? And what they did was they set it up so people would make the line outside towards the parking lot in the back. So in other words, we have more building that way, so it's allowed more people to stand in that side of the building. So that's why they made the entrance that way. And then when you go in, there was a little window there where you pay your money, and then you're walking straight into Abe's, the first floor. And
right.
The reason why they waited is because they wanted to make sure they got a lot of people on the first floor, so it looks crowded. It already looks crowded, but I mean, they were getting crowded anyway. But that's what that was the thinking behind it. Let's open up the first floor. People will come in, they will drink, they will dance, they will have all this, and then the feature will be opening the upstairs. So then they waited till 11 o'clock at night to open the upstairs. So it was packed in the first floor. So I was already upstairs. I started playing music before they even came in. They opened the gate and they started coming in. And that's how they built. And they started doing that all the time. They did.
Yeah, that's because I want people to know that. Unless you went, you didn't know. Because they're saying, oh, they probably just ran into your room. I said, no. You got to tell it. You got to paint that picture, tell the whole story.
Right, exactly. Right. And when we first opened up, we had the pool open. We had all kinds of things. Opening night, we had lions in cages as part of the opening ceremony. We had lions in cages. Yeah, lions in cages. We had a huge python. We had the Le Clique dancers. We had them all there. We had a magician going and walking around doing magic. And then as a special treat, we had a monkey, chimpanzee that can roller skate. And his name was Zippy.
Oh, no.
So it was Hippie and Zippy. And I was competing with this monkey because this monkey can roller skate. I mean, I am not kidding. We would play the song. He can roller skate forward, backwards. He did tricks, everything. I was like, oh my God. I mean, this is what opening night was.
It truly was a circus. It was a circus came to town.
It was perfect. You know what I mean? It was like memorable. Nobody's gonna forget that. You know what I mean?
I bet. I wouldn't have forgot that if I was there. Oh, no way.
It was great. Yeah, that's the way it used to be. You know, like I said, and then that was the policy, basically. Now, I was there for the first 3 months. It was me and Gerald T. I would do Fridays, and Gerald T. would do Saturdays upstairs, and we would switch, downstairs. But then after 3 months, I kept on telling him to bring in Al Murphy because Al Murphy was the premier promoter, in Jersey at the time, in Newark. So, Miles didn't want to at first because, he was making plenty of money. He was like, why do I got to bring in a promoter, honestly?
Well,
what's the reason why?
Well, let's clarify that. Pre to that, club owners like your Rebels or Michael Brody didn't believe in promotion. They did. They built the club, built the DJ. The DJ became big. The club got big. Club got bigger. The DJ got bigger. And then you mentioned about bringing Al Murphy in. Why are you bringing Al Murphy in? And why would he even agree to that? Because Miles looking at it like, hey, yo, Papa, we're bankrolling here. Are you crazy? Exactly. I can just hear, I got to split my money with him? I ain't splitting shit. You know how they are. I ain't splitting nothing. Yep. Go ahead. So
when we first started and he agreed to it on an off night. He said, okay, fine. We'll bring Al Murphy in for Wednesday nights. So, and then Al said, okay, if I'm going to do Wednesday nights and we want to make it right, we want to make it big, I want to bring in Larry Levan to be the opening job to play. Okay. Now, before then, Larry could not play anywhere. He was strictly garage. They would not allow him to play anywhere else, anywhere. It was strictly garage. But we, Miles and Al Murphy, and they were pretty good in with Brody and them. So they agreed to it, So they let out, Larry. Which was shocking because Jersey's still too close for Michael Brody. Right. Zanzibar's too close. Yeah. In a sense, in his mind. Right. So they allowed it, and then that's what they had. It started Wednesday nights, and Al Murphy was there, and he brought in Larry Levan. They did the Wednesday night openings. Larry only lasted for about a month. He didn't want to do it after a month. He was like, he had his club. This club was big, you know what I mean? He was like, I don't need to be here on a Wednesday night, you know what I mean? So he just did it for like a month. And then they switched it over, and then Larry Patterson took over for him for Wednesday nights. But it got the Wednesday nights going for them. And then once we were there for about a couple of months, Al Murphy was like, you know what? We need you to be the DJ on Fridays and Saturdays. We can't have you and Gerald T switching places. And I was never that kind of jock. I was never one, New York, they're very competitive. I would never go after a job of another job, ever. I never went to any club and say, listen, I'm better than that job. Maybe you want to hire me. Or here's my tape. If you decide to get rid of him, hire me. I was never like that. But Al Murphy was like, we have to do this. This is what we have to do for the club itself. So what was the politics behind it? Who had the Friday and Saturdays? Like I said, Friday and Saturday was once Al started making money for him on Wednesdays, then after a while, Miles let him manage all the time. Originally, the manager was Desmond, which was the manager for the bar tent, for the bar downstairs. He was the manager of the whole thing, Zanzibar. Desmond was the original DJ. And then later on, when Miles came in and took over, then he started taking over the Friday and Saturdays and all the nights at Zanzibar. So then I talked to Miles, and Miles like, well, okay, here, I guess Miles, I had talked to him already. He said, okay, yeah, I'm going to bring you in, but I'm going to have to pay more money to Gerald now, too. I said, you do what you got to do. So Gerald got more money, but, he didn't like the fact that I ended up doing Friday and Saturdays. But that was just Miles' move. I mean, not Miles, Al Murphy's move. That's what he wanted, basically, pretty much. So, and Al Murphy. Well, because in a business sense, he knew that you pulled the crowd. Well, yeah. Because nobody does that unless you're pulling the numbers. That's just the way it is. True. That's true. That is true. But it's also because Al Murphy, like most promoters, has their own DJs.
Right.
Okay,
And their favorites. And
Al Murphy's DJ was Larry Patterson. So his ulterior motive was eventually to get Larry in there. Okay, so I lasted the first year and a half with that situation, for a year and a half there. And then after me, they brought Larry. And then after Larry, they brought in T. Scott. But in between, though, they had, for a period, they had David Morales. They had Francois K. also DJ there. They were all different jocks that played there. And then eventually, it ended up with T. Scott doing the weekend. And Larry Patterson was doing one thing.
I remember Naeem was also alternating with David Morales. Naeem used to alternate, I think, with Morales.
Yeah.
On that night, on the Wednesday nights or something. Right, they were alternating week to week, Naeem Johnson, right?
Right, exactly. Yeah, they had a couple of different people come in and do it. Exactly, yeah.
They were trying to figure, I think I always felt like they were trying to figure out who was who was going to be the right person to make that room stay packed.
Right. Exactly.
And that was the end of the day. For them, it's not about music. It's about how much do we make.
Exactly. How much money can we pull in? Who's going to bring the numbers? Basically.
Correct.
Pretty much. Yeah. That's it. That's exactly what it was.
So how long did it stay Abe's Disco before the name change and all that happened?
I think it was at least 10 years. And then it went to Brick City. But it was Zanzibar for at least 10 years. Yeah.
Right. So it opened up as Abe's.
Right.
And then when did it change over officially from Abe's to Zanzibar?
August 29th, 1979.
So that because pre the 1979, the downstairs was Abe's Disco, right?
And now it became Zanzibar,
Zanzibar.
Basically the club,
The garage of New Jersey.
But Zanzibar was the club, yeah.
Zanzibar, the garage of New Jersey.
Zanzibar.
He used to go, you haven't party unless you go to Zanzibar. I remember the commercial on BLS. Oh, God. Okay, so.
There's a funny story there on the Wednesday because what happened was Tony was invited to come and hang out because he used to hang out with obviously with Shep, right? Shep Pettibone.
Right.
Shep Pettibone used to do 98 before Tony, and then he gave it to Tony. He said, "All right, I'm gonna leave this. You can take it over. You're gonna take over doing the show on 98.7 on KISS." So they used to hang out together, and then Shep came to Zanzibar. So him and Larry were friends, Larry Patterson. So they're like, Tony, you got to come out and check out this club. So Tony was like, really? Jersey? I don't even want to. He was a New York guy.
That's right. He said, Jersey, what?
Jersey? He's like, I don't want to go to Jersey. No, I don't want to go to Jersey. But he said, okay, fine. I'll hang out with you guys. So he went. And as soon as he went in and saw the place, he was, oh, my God, this is like the garage of Jersey. You know what I mean? Pretty much. He says, I got to play here. You got to let me play here. So he really, really wanted to play. So eventually, Larry gave him, he gave him the Wednesday night to try. He said, okay, let's try it. They were, and I didn't tell you how they switched. When we first opened, remember, they were the 1200s. They didn't get switched until Larry Levan came to do the Wednesday night guest spot because Larry wanted Thorns. So then at that point, that's when they said, okay, so let's switch them out. And they switched them to Thorns, and I had no problem with either one because I had played with both of them over the years. So, but Larry wanted the Thorns, and that's when they switched to the Thorns. And then from that point on, it was Thorn turntable. Anyway, so when Tony comes to play, they're Thorn turntable. Tony never played on Thorn turntables. So Tony goes to play, and he is so bad. He's like, oh my God. They're looking at him like, what is wrong with this guy? And he felt bad. He was like, oh my God, what is going on here? So he begged Patterson for a second chance. He said, listen, I know I was horrible, but I guarantee you I will be better. I am not this bad. I'm telling you, I am not this bad.
I can hear him saying it too, just like that.
Exactly.
I can hear him going like this, how he talks with his hand. I'm not this bad.
They gave him a second chance, and he got
I'm
better.
I'm shocked because normally they would never give you a second chance. Never.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So Larry said, okay, I'm gonna give you a second chance. He gave him a second chance. He practiced. He got better at it. He played it smart. He didn't try to do those crazy kind of things. He tried to blend records that are easy to blend with each other, and that's how he used to write it. And he worked it out. He figured out exactly what to do. And then he ended up being the jock there on Wednesday nights. And then eventually, I'm not sure because one thing about back then that people don't understand is I never got to hear Nicky Siano play. I never did. Because once I started DJing at Doc's and stuff, from that point on, that was my job. There was no weekend or weekdays, most of that where I was off. I would work like Wednesday through Sunday. Okay. So it wasn't like I had time, let me go hang out and listen to this guy play. The only time I ever heard other jocks play was when we had the pool parties. So those would be on a Monday night or on a Tuesday night. And I got to go to the garage and hear Larry play, or, I would hear somebody else play in another place, that kind of thing. But in general, DJs back then didn't really hang out. It wasn't, if you were a real DJ, you were working. You were working a lot. You had a lot of gigs. You basically didn't get to hear a lot of people. Now, if your early days, you're just beginning, yeah, you got plenty of free time. You can go like I did. I used to go to Hollywood and listen to Richie and all them. But once I was steady working, it was done. There was no time for me to go listen to anybody. I was just working, and that was it.
Right. Well, that makes sense. And you know what? And this is the thing. When you say Wednesday through Sunday, you were opening and to close.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't like you had, I'm going to bring the guest in. They're going to have a guy warm up. No, you would start from the first record to the last record each and every night, right?
Exactly. You played all night. There was no, Larry was, he used to have DiPino sometimes open up for him.
Yeah, right.
Some people have people do that, that kind of thing. Open up for them. But in general, most of the jocks played all night. You know what I mean? Pretty much. Yeah, that's what they did.
So as the timeline goes, I guess we know that Larry Patterson and T. Scott and Tony Humphries, and they create their mystique, and,
right, exactly.
And everything goes. Where do you leave from there? Where do you start to roll to?
So when I leave Zanzibar, I still had docks. They were still open. So I went back there. I just went back there, fit right in, back with my crowd. It was like, it was always crowded. So I didn't have to worry about trying to build up a crowd or anything. I already had a built-in crowd. So I did that. And then 2 years later, Mike McKnight, which from the Brothers 3, was working down the shore for Jerry Rotunda, which was at the Blue Grotto. So there was a club in Seaside Heights called the Blue Grotto. And then Jerry Rotunda was the manager there. So he brought in Mike McKnight. And then he was like, I got this guy that I think, you might want to bring down. So he mentioned my name. So then I went and I talked to him. And, he said, all right, let's try you out. So I started playing. And he liked what I did. So I ended up going down the shore. And that was before the Jersey Shore guys or any of that crap. We're talking about 83. You know what I mean? 83.
Yeah, that's way before it happened.
Way before these crazy guys took it over. And we did the Blue Grotto. And then what happened was from there, he ended up at Temptations, which was the big club back then. He ended up managing that club and being part of that. So once he did that, he brought me in there to play. He had Mike McKnight there to play. So we were playing there. And I did that until, this is the weirdest thing. Listen how they got they got the club switch. So Jerry's the owner and running the manager of. So we're going in to play one weekend. And when we go in, Eugene Atrana, which is the manager of Chicago's in Lodi, New Jersey, comes in with like 3 big Gambino guys, you know what I mean? And they get on the dance floor, like in 3 corners with their hands crossed. And he gets in the middle of the floor and he says, we are now the owners of this club. I kid you not. To the staff. We were
a hostile takeover.
Yeah, exactly. He just went to the middle of the floor. We are now the owners of this club. And everybody's like, what's going on here? He says, I am going to talk to each one of you individually as I go to the back. So one at a time, one of you will come and we'll talk and see what's going on. So he talked to everybody about, staying on, we got this. So I was real cocky. I was young and cocky, feeling my oats. And I was like, I ain't gonna work for this guy unless he thinks he's not gonna pay me what I want. You know what I mean? That's the way I felt. So when I go in there, I said, listen, I'm the best you're gonna get down here. Okay, this is what I want, and you need to pay this. And he was like, whoa. He said, well, listen, he says, I'll do this. I'll pay you what you want tonight. I'll let you play. And if we like what you're doing, I'll keep you on. So I played that night. At the end of the night, we went back to the thing and we had our conversation. He says, listen, I love what you're doing. You're the best DJ I've heard, but I can't afford what you want. I can give you this, but I can't give you that. I said, nope, sorry, I'm out. Bye. And I left. But when I left, the guy that was doing the sound down in Seaside Heights was another great audio engineer, Mike Canaccio. Mike Canaccio.
Oh, I know Mike Canaccio. Wow.
He did all the sound down the shore.
What was Mike Canaccio's name of the company he had again? Not Boho. That's
Design Environment or something like
Design
that.
Environment, Design Lab, something. Yeah, I remember. Wow, that's a long time. Mike Canacho, I haven't heard that name in a long time.
Yeah, Mike did all the sound on the shore. He did all the club. And he was serious. His sound was tight, really tight. Really
yeah, comparing to what was around. Yeah.
No, he was really good. So I told Mike, I said, listen, I'm not there. So see if any clubs want to have me as a DJ. So he mentioned it to the club Hollywood, which had just opened up like 6 months before. And the funny thing about Hollywood was that it had a DJ there that was good. But we went to, after we finished playing in our clubs, we used to go to the diner. So there was a diner in Tom's River over the bridge, and we would go to the diner. So we went to the diner, and my light man at the time was Wilson Gomez, right? He was my light man. This guy was a character, all right? So what he did was we went to eat to the diner, and we're sitting in a booth. Behind me is the DJ from Hollywood with some girl there.
Oh, God.
Right? And he's like, I don't know why they're paying this guy Hippie so much money. I don't know why who they think he is. He's not like, he's not all that. So he's saying this, and we're laughing in my booth because I'm wearing this side listening to it. But Wilson is a character, and he gets up. He says, hey, what's happening? Let me introduce myself. My name is Hippie Torrales. The guy changed colors. You know what I mean? He's like, oh, how you doing? How you doing? I'm so glad to meet you and stuff. He may believe it was me. It scared the crap out of the guy.
I bet. I think he would have been startled too. I mean, I'm like, huh?
It was hilarious. But I had to get up and I said, listen, he's faking it. I'm Hippie and stuff like that. So then I met him and stuff. But when Hollywood came and the situation was there, I had no problem because this guy was talking crap about me. I had no problem taking his job. You know, I didn't go for it, but when they offered it, I said, fine, I'll take it.
It's mine.
That's how life is. You know what
it's mine.
That's it. That's how life is.
Well, the way life is, you know, you lose some, you win some. It's part of the game. It's part of the game.
That's it. That's it. I tell people all the time, one of the issues I had back then with the club scene back there is that the jocks really thought I was getting too much money. They really down the shore because remember, I mean, they used to get paid, but you know, I was making $1,000 a week. So back then, we're talking about 83. They're like, that's a lot of money. You know what I mean? So they're like, wow, this guy's getting paid. Why is he getting paid so much? And I always say what Todd Terry says, you're worth what you can get. You know, if they feel that they can get somebody else for
believe me, they'll do it.
Hire that person.
They'll do it in a heartbeat. I've seen it happen many times.
But if they want you and you ask for $1,000, they're going to pay $1,000 because they feel you're worth that. You know what I'm saying? That's the way it is.
Now, hang on, because you're dealing also, remember, you're dealing with Italian mafia down there.
Yeah, I know.
And they want the best.
Yeah, and they pay. One thing I got to say, they will pay. I have never had issues. Never had issues.
I tell everybody that. When it came to getting those envelopes, they would come with the envelope, put it right in your pocket, never say a word. Here you go.
That's right. That's
done.
Right.
But when they got angry and you got a call, try to keep your nose clean.
That's it.
That's all I would say. Just keep your nose clean, keep your mouth shut, just do your job. Don't start some shit.
That's right. That's true. Exactly.
But you know what's funny in those days? Everybody got paid. Everybody worked. And you know what? Yes, it's not the best situation, but everybody had a job.
Yeah, but one thing I got to say, because they thought it was quite different to what I was actually making. When I used to work at Zanzibar and I was the DJ there, I was making $35 a night. That was it. That's what I was making. I was making $70 a week when I first started there. It wasn't until that year, like remember, that was 79. Once 80 came around and I won the Billboard Award.
That changed everything.
Then I said, okay, now you got to pay me. He said, okay, well, now we got to pay you. You know what I mean? But before that, you know, and when he paid me.
You're making as much as the guy pushing the broom.
Right, exactly. And the funny thing is, when he paid me, then Gerald got another boost of his salary. Had to boost it up. So Gerald can't complain. You know what I mean? He got boosted. Every time I got paid, he got another boost.
Gerald Gordon, where are you, man? He's probably watching this laughing. Probably laughing right now saying, oh, God, help us.
But it was good.
But as we go, I know, and then also, I know not too long after the studio stuff begins for you, because I remember a big remix happened. You know, one of the biggest gospel records, and I'll let you go into that in a minute, you know, happened on that timeless, right around when you said 80, 81, 82, I'm saying I could hear it. Doom.
Well, what happened was me and George became decided to start doing mixes together, like sort of together, the two of us. And we didn't have anybody offer anything yet, but George was good friends with Ray Caviano.
Which George are we talking about for everybody? George Rodriguez. Okay, buddy.
From Garden State Record Pool. He was good friends with Ray Caviano. So and he told Ray, let us do some mixes. So Ray let us do one of his mixes. The first record was something called Born to Be Wild. Remember the old rock record, Born to Be Wild? I think the group was Star Child, something like that it was called. So we did that mix for him, and it was all right. It came all right, but we started getting studio experience, because back then, unlike now, you actually used to go into a recording studio to do a mix. It wasn't a home. You didn't have a home studio. You know what I mean? You didn't have any of that crap. You had an engineer in the studio that did all the engineering. You didn't do any of the engineering. He did it. Basically, what you did, you were in there to rearrange the song in whatever format you wanted with him, extending the intro, extending the break, making some instruments play, some instruments not play. But other than that, you weren't in there reproducing or changing all the instruments or any of that. In those early days, you used whatever instruments were on the 24 track, and then you just rearranged them whatever way you wanted to. And that's what the engineer. Now, Walter Gibbons and Tom Savarese used to have people come in and add extra percussion on their tracks and stuff like that. But that was it. It wasn't like a whole new song being written on top of something.
But here's the deal. Now you got the original multi-track from the group, from like Ray would have sent the multi-tracks over. So you got the 4-minute radio, the 4-minute album version, right? What was the thought process to making this extended play? How did you get something that translated from a 4-minute version to a 7.5, 8, 9-minute version?
Right. Well, what they would do is the first thing that would happen was the engineer would start basically pretty much working on the sound. So he would start usually with the bass, cleaning it up, see if there's any leaks, any noise in the background, gating it so that leaks are gone. And he would clean that up. Then he would probably go to the snare, the hats. He would work his way across until he had everything as clean as he possibly can. And then he would start working on levels, to get a feel for how it would sound overall. Once we got that up, then the rest was, okay, now we want to do an intro. So let's say we want just the drums to play for like 16 bars. So what he would do is we would mute every instrument on the board. We would do a pass onto a 1/4-inch tape, basically, pretty much, right, with just those drums. Once you had those drums, if we wanted to go to another section, we had to unmute those buttons to start that next section. When we did that, we do another pass. And what he would do is take that first 1/4-inch with the drums and the other part and splice them together with a splicer to match them up and put tape on it.
This is the engineer doing this. You guys still weren't touching no grease pen, no blades yet, nothing.
None of that. We didn't do any of that. That's all the engineer. They did all of it. We didn't touch anything. Basically, you were there, let the engineer do his thing, then we're there to do our mix the way we wanted to go, and that's it. We didn't even have control over, pretty much. I mean, if we wanted something a little louder, yeah. But in general, it was the engineer would get a good mix going, and then we would work from there. That was it. That's all it was back then as far as remixing. There wasn't like now. You didn't control everything. You didn't control anything. You were just sort of arranging, and that was it.
Right, you were rearranging the project, then really remixing it in a sense, right?
So, yeah. So after we did that, then he gave us the Jimmy Ross Fall Into a Trance. So we did that, and when we did that, then that got radio play. That became like something that the radio started playing a lot. So we got a little recognition. So we did that, and we were doing little odd things in there, doing little different mixes and stuff like that. And then what happened was around 82, 83, patrons that used to go to my club, Docs, they went to down to Washington, and the DJs down there were playing the Clark Sisters, You Brought the Sunshine. It was like an anthem in Washington. So they brought it back and they said, you got to play this, and they brought copies for me. They brought copies for Larry Levan. They brought copies for Larry Patterson. They brought copies for everybody. They brought them back and they gave it to us. They're like, you got to play this. So they gave us the copy. They gave me the copy that played it. And I was like, oh, yeah, that's nice. And they were getting into it every week more and more. It was getting, bigger and bigger because we were all playing it. Larry, me, Larry Patterson, we were playing it. So once it got to the point that I saw, well, this is getting kind of intense, I decided to call the label and say, you know what? I'd like to do a mix on this. So I called up the label. They were in Detroit. And I told him, listen, my name is so and so. I've done so.
Hold on, wait.
Yeah.
Wait, espérate, wait. What's the name of the label?
Westbound. For the original.
What other superstar disco records were on that label before you called? Because I know you must have looked at it and said, Westbound.
Right, exactly.
You had CJ and Company on there with Devil's Gone and We Got Our Own Thing.
Emeralds. You had a bunch of groups.
And you were running those records every week, correct? Yeah. So you must have saw this thing and went, what's this? Right? Because I would have done the same thing. I would have been like, so you called.
And remember that when they did that and I called the label, I'm thinking to myself, okay, hopefully I can get this mix. So I'm talking to the guy and he's like, okay, you want to do a mix on this? Okay, we can do that. He says, how are we going to do this? I said, well, it's up to you. What do you want me to do? I said, I need the masters. He said, well, we can fly you out here. You can do the mix here in Detroit. So I'm like, okay, fine, let's do that. So they flew me out to Detroit. He said, do you need anything? I said, I just wanted, at that time we started adding keyboards. So I said, I just want a keyboard player.
Who was the keyboard player?
So they hired a guy. He came in and I didn't even have him do anything. All I wanted to do was fatten up the keyboards. So I just had him play the same keys that they had on organ just to fatten it up. That was it. So then I went in, did the mix, for them. But before I did the mix, that day when I called them, the next day I was calling for follow-up with them because we were doing, he told me the next day, he said, oh, listen, there was somebody called today for this guy named Tony Humphreys that he wants to do a mix on this. And I told him, no, we already got you doing this. So I beat Tony Humphreys by 1 day on that mix.
What?
1 day. If not,
Tony smoke. 1 day.
By 1 day. I beat him by 1 day. Exactly.
This other guy from New York, New Jersey called. You know him? Tony Humphreys.
They're like,
I know who it is. Yeah. I know who it is.
So, and then once I did that mix, that's the one that really blew up. That blew up.
No, I know that. Yeah, that's why I was waiting for you to mention that record.
Yeah, the Clark Sisters, You Brought the Sunshine, and it's still a classic. In the club world, it's still a classic. Yeah, without a doubt.
It's one of those staple records. You want to make the crowd go nuts? Yeah. Play that record and watch what happens. Just get ready.
Yeah, exactly.
So it goes top 40 radio, it goes R&B radio. I remember BLS was playing on rotation, New York, New Jersey. It starts to take off. What happens after that to your career now, as far as now you're a remixer?
Right.
Modified, you've been remixing, but now you're what we call the household name.
Right.
Morales, these names. Here we go. Shep, Hippie's in the ring now. Right. So go ahead, Hippie. Take us on.
So then from that point, I started doing some more mix. I did some small label kind of thing. It wasn't like the majors were calling right away. And, oh, yeah, we got to get you to mix. It was more small label kind of thing doing. But I was still doing my clubs because what happened, the clubbing took off a little more. I was doing more clubs. I was getting more gigs, that kind of thing. So that took off and I was doing that. And then it wasn't until 88 that Joe Rodriguez, who owned Music Village Record Shop in Newark.
Oh, yeah.
Village Record Shop.
That was where I got my copy. That was the only place you could get it. Nobody in New York had. I had to go to Jersey to buy my copy. But go ahead.
Yeah. No, I used to love Music Village. That's why I used to get my music.
I remember that.
I didn't really go to Moving with Abby because I had Music Village right here.
He was the only one that had copies. Yeah. Nobody else had. Well, go ahead. I'm sorry to interrupt.
That's all right. So then he tells me, listen, you've been doing this a long time. Why don't you do your own song? He wanted me to do my own song. So I was like, you know what? Okay, I'll try it. So I borrowed a keyboard and a drum machine that my partner had, Nelson Butchie Nieves, he had in his house because he had a keyboard. So I borrowed them. I took them home and I started working on this bass line, the bass line, and then putting some little drums together for it. So I get that done and I finished that day and I start working on lyrics. So like in a day and a half, I wrote, You're Gonna Miss Me. So I wrote the song, I had the bass line and the drums, and then I took it to him. I played a little bit I heard. He said, okay, yeah, let's do that. So we booked time at Sensation Studios, which Sensations was a club actually at the time, Club Sensations, but they had a recording studio in the back, right? Now, the reason why, and mind you, Kelly Willoughby was the owner, right? And originally they had the club downstairs on the first floor called New Experience. That was the original club there. And then he made some money and he brought the upstairs. He brought the whole building, the whole block. It was pretty much. That's how big the club was. He brought that. And mind you, he made a lot of money from one song that he actually produced and was one of the, as far as the producers and the publishing company, which was called The Roof is on Fire. He produced that song. It made so much money for him. He was able to go and invest and buy the building. That's how much money he made.
It was an anthem. That was not only a club anthem, but that was an anthem in every which way.
Oh yeah, it was a huge.
Oh God, it crossed everybody, and everybody played it no matter what set you were, whatever club you heard. The roof is on fire.
Yeah. Everywhere, you heard that everywhere.
Oh God,
so
crazy.
they had a studio, Sensation Studio, and Paul Scott was the engineer for him. So I go in, and Paul Scott is half of BOP.
I was gonna say, Brothers of Peace, everyone. Yeah. Get your pen and paper out where the education's going.
So Paul Scott was the engineer there. So I said, I got this song and I want to do it. So we go in, we start working on the music and the bass, and I tell him I need some keyboards. So I said I want dun, 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 dun. So he played the keyboard. He said like this, yeah, exactly. So he played the keyboards. We started getting everything together. It started coming together, and then we needed to put the lyrics down. So I said, listen, I'm going to demo it. So whoever comes to sing it, they'll know how to do it. So I put the vocals in, I do it. And I take it to Joe. I say back, listen, this is what I got. Now we'll find a singer thing. And he says, listen, it sounds fine. We don't need no.
Yeah, right. It sounds fine with this.
It says fine, just like that. Just keep it just like that. I said, really? Seriously? I was like, He said, yeah, do. So we kept it. That's how I ended up singing. It wasn't because I wanted to. I wanted to get a singer to come in and do it. It's just that he said, just keep your voice on it. I said, okay, fine. So we do the song, we finish it, we get it all together, and we release it. So we sell about 7,000 in the US. But while with what's happening here is nothing, because radio's not playing it or anything. But overseas in the UK and in France, it's blowing up. I mean, it's played everywhere. It just like changed their whole scene for the summer. That was like the summer song for them. So while that's happening, I get a call from Dave Lee, which is Joey Negro. You know what I mean? He was the owner of Republic Records at the time. Mm-hmm. So him and his partner called me and they're like, we would like to sign your song, for release here in the UK on our label. And Republic was being distributed by Rough Trade at the time. That was the big distributor for them. So we're like, yeah, why not? I didn't know what was going on until Benji came back from touring, up there. And he said, dude, your song is blowing up in the UK. I said, really? I said, yeah. He said, no, it's everywhere. So when I came back and he said, yeah, let's do that. We said, okay, fine, let's sign it with them. So we signed with them. And then 2 days later, Virgin Records comes looking to sign it, which would have been a lot bigger. But we already had signed with Republic. So it was fine. You know what I mean? We did it. They put the song out and the song was, pretty big up there. It didn't reach the top 10 or it didn't even reach the top 40. I think it entered at number 43 or the highest, 42. But it sold over 2 million units. You know what I mean? It was a huge record everywhere it played. And that got me to touring overseas. You know what I mean? Because once that song came out, I ended up, they were like, listen, we're going to bring you here for a tour. You know what I mean? To do different areas with the club. I said, all right, fine. I'm ready. I can DJ. Because like I said, I was not there to sing. So the first gig they get me in England was with Nicky Holloway, right? And I think, what's his name? Pete Tong. So they have this huge place they're doing. I'm going, and it's out. I mean, the line they have is all the way around the block. So I go in and, with Dave Lee with me and stuff like that. And we go in, and I'm thinking I'm going to DJ. You know what I mean? Because I'm like, that's what I am.
That's what I'm waiting to hear. That's what I'm waiting to hear. And what happens?
So I go in, and I'm ready to DJ. And they're like, they're asking Dave, no, we want him to perform. And I'm like, perform? I'm not a performer.
What do you mean perform? I'm performing behind a turntable.
They're like, no, we want him to, we want him to sing the song. So like Dave, like, just do it for them. They want. So I said, okay, fine, I'll do it. I didn't prepare nothing or anything. So I got up there, they throw the track on, you know what I mean? And I start singing, but I start singing over the record. But then I realized, the song's not really on the record. So I stopped singing over the record. I'm like, I'll just lip sync, you know what I mean? And let the song go. I was singing it.
One more time, everybody. It's You're Gonna Miss Me. You're gonna turn
I'm doing it, and I'm up there, and and I'm like, I'm not, it was fine. I did it. I did what I had to do. And then I DJ'd after that. But that was like from there. Then they sent me to Germany. I did Germany, a DJ set in Germany. Then I went to Spain. All that in that one trip. They first made that first trip. I went to Spain. When I went to Spain, the trip was unbelievable at first. I get there. When I get there, they could not book a hotel for me. So they got in the worst part of town. They got me a hotel for the first.
Why couldn't they book you a hotel?
Everything was booked.
Because it's middle of the summer, right? It's middle of the summer.
Exactly. So everything was booked. So they could not book me. So they found me in the raunchiest hotel you can think of.
What?
There was no elevator. I had to walk up, and back then we were carrying records. Remember?
That's right.
We were carrying CDs.
Oh baby, I remember that.
Records, and they didn't have no bellhop or anything, and no elevator. I had to walk
no elevator, right? 4
flights with luggage, records, everything I had. I went up. When I entered the room, it looked like a murder scene. The bed, mind you, the bed was on 3. The fourth leg was down. The bed was at an angle like this, right? The sheets weren't done.
Guys, this is True House Stories. This is what I mean.
Like, this is all like this. The room looked like a mess. The tile, I was like, I didn't even want to. I was like, no, you can't. And I called them. I'm like, this, I can't stay here. They're like, I'm sorry, we can't.
¡Qué basura! ¡Carajo! ¡Niente! No, he's screaming.
We promise tomorrow we will have you in a beautiful place. It's just we couldn't find anything tonight. So I'm in there and I'm sleeping with my clothes on. I'm not doing anything. I'm like, I got my clothes on and I'm like,
so let me ask you, was it like saying you've just welcomed yourself into Roach Motel? Once you get in, you can't get out?
Yeah, it was bad. I was, oh my God. Now this is touring. Oh my God, I think I'm not going to be doing this. I was like, wow, this is touring. But it was unfortunately, but the next day they were real nice. They had everything. But it was a mess that first time. But I ended up doing there, and then I ended up performing in like their Top of the Pop show in Spain. So I did performance, live performance there in Spain. And that's what got my career going as far as DJing overseas. But it also got my career going for remixes. Because from doing that, then I started getting paid because what happened was I joined up with Mark Mendoza. You know what I mean? I wanted to do work with Mark, because I love what Mark was doing. So I said, let's join up and do stuff together. So we started doing stuff together.
So what year officially was that you and Mark joined up to work together?
I think it was, I can't remember back the line, but I'm going to say around 92, 93, maybe we started getting together.
But it's so funny because at that time, I remember you were not playing that much anymore in the scene, DJ here.
Right,
in the States. Yeah, you were fine because I was still playing New York, and I remember you were going and you would stay over there for a while. I remember you would do excursions. I call them like long excursions.
Yeah, exactly.
Couple of months you would stay. Couple of months out there. I'm like, how do you do it? I remember asking you, says, well, you just get used to it. I said I couldn't do it, but I remember you were telling me, you just get used to it. You just deal with it.
It's the touring life, as I say. You know what I mean? That's what you do. You got to do what you got to do. Anyway, so me and Mark got together, and then we started doing some mixes, and we ended up like Eddie Maduro. Remember Eddie Maduro? He used to work for Sin. Remember Sin?
Street Information Network.
Yeah. It used to be Vince
Pellegrino's thing.
Yeah, Vince Pellegrino. Yeah,
I remember.
Eddie Maduro used to work for him. Yeah, and Eddie Maduro actually started by working at Music Village. He used to work the counter, and then from there he moved into working for Sin stuff. But that's how he started in the music on that end. So Eddie got access to some acapellas to Rosie Gaines, right? Now, what happened was they wanted remixes because Rosie Gaines was the singer who did Diamonds and Pearls with Prince. She used to be in his band, and she used to sing with him on some of the songs. So they wanted to create, a solo career for her. So Motown took her on, and they put an album together for her. So her album, they did her first album. So then the first single was I Want You. So they wanted club mixes of that. So Eddie Maduro, working at Sin, he was able to get the acapellas. He got the acapellas, and they wanted him to do a mix. So Eddie said, I used to have a home studio like you did. I used to have a home studio in Newark. So he came over. He said, "Let's, I want to remix this." I said, "All right, just let me know when. Just come by and we'll do it." So I've been holding on to these acapellas for like over a month, and Eddie never came. And I was like, Eddie, what's going on? So my wife at the time said, "You know what? You and Mark, why don't you do a mix on it, and let Eddie turn it in for you guys because it's getting close to deadline time. You know what I mean? You only got like a week left, So then me and Mark did a mix. We did it. And then a couple of days before it, I told Eddie, I said, "Eddie, you haven't been around it. Me and Mark did a mix on this. Can you turn it in for us for them?" And Eddie's like, "Oh, wait a minute, but I'm supposed to do a mix." So he got together. He said, "All right, you know what I'm going to do? Get a mix." He got together with George Mina at George Mina's studio. And him and George Mina got together and they did a mix for Rosie Gaines' "I Want You" song. So now they have those songs. And he said, "Yeah, fine. I'll include yours in the package." So included our songs, included his songs. So Motown gets the package. They play it for Rosie. She hears our mix of "I Want You" and she cries. She thinks it's horrible. She's like, "Oh my God."
That's what I wanted to say. She didn't cry in joy. She cried in...
She cried in pain. She was like, "Oh my God, it's horrible."
Why? Why did she cry? What happened?
Because, remember, she was singing a down-tempo song. And back then, the sampling up or making it faster wasn't that good. It was still munchky. So when you hear the vibrato in a person's voice, so it wasn't that, to her, it was like, "Oh my God, I sound horrible."
What'd they do to me? They made me sound like a chipmunk. I could hear her screaming.
Exactly. So they give them the package and they're like, "Oh no, she doesn't like their song." She cried. She did not like their mix. And we were like, "You know what? We don't want to get paid. We just want our name, on the 12-inch to be included." So they were like, "Okay, fine. We can include your mix." So they included the mix. So what happens is when they finally put out the 12-inch, there's a mix on there with our name, but it's not our mix. It was an extra mix that George and Eddie had done and turned in, and they got confused in the process. So they put their mix on the 12-inch, but they put our name as far as the credit for it on the promos for that. Our mix never came out. So we still have the song. We're like, "Okay, fine. We're not getting paid for it anyway." So Camacho was going to England that time. So he told me, "Listen, you got anything new?" So I gave him the song. I said, "Listen, take this, play it out there, see what happens." So he takes it out. He starts playing it, and people like it. And he gets in touch. Paul Trouble Anderson says, "Listen, I want a copy of this." So Camacho called me from England and said, "Listen,
Paul wants a copy."
I said, "Yeah, fine. Give it to him. That's fine." He gives it to Paul, and Paul blows it up on Kiss Radio. He's playing it and becomes one of his anthems. He's playing it constantly. He blows it up so much that Motown England called me and says, "We need to put your mix out." Okay.
And what's your answer to them? What did you say to Motown England?
"You got to pay, baby. You got to pay." That's what I said. At that point, we got paid.
Well, first it probably wasn't even the payment. First, it's always like the New York office said no go because Rosie's like no, and they're saying, "Oh hell no, we need to put this out." I know they thought that's how they spoke over there. "Hell no, we need to put this out."
Yeah, this is the mix.
This is the mix, not the other stuff. This is the mix.
So at that point, they paid. They put the mix out, and it gave Rosie prestige and blew her up. Started giving her some coverage. So then Bobo had a label in
Scotland.
What do you call it? Scotland, called Big Bang Records.
Yes, Bobo.
Bobo had reached out to us a little bit before that, and we had done a couple of mixes for him. So he decided he wanted to license the next song off that album called "Closer Than Close" from Motown. So they did a special arrangement where they let him license it.
Which is shocking. Which is very shocking.
Exactly. Because they weren't really doing anything with the album. You know what I mean? So they were like, "Okay, fine." So he paid them to license the song to him and allowed him to do new mixes. So now comes "Closer Than Close." They get the song. Bobo says, "I need you guys to do the mix." So he gives it to us. We do the mixes. He gets the mixes. They put them out. It blows her up. She enters number 4 in the top 10 charts.
Oh, I remember that too.
Yeah, she does Top of the Pops. She does everything. And that year she wins Best International Artist at the R&B Awards in England. She wins on television and everything, the whole thing. So that made her career for that. You know what I mean? Just blew her up at that point on stuff. But like I said, that started from her crying to love.
I was gonna say those cries of tears of fear turn into cries. "Oh my God, I gotta go back."
How you doing?
You're laughing like all of us have done in the past. Say, yeah, right. Because I know how you're thinking. Like you're saying, biatch. You're saying, if it wasn't for us, this would never have happened. So sit your ass down. And I swear, you're thinking, of course, everybody's like, yeah. Like, and you're going to Mark. This thing would never even happen if Paul didn't start rocking this joint. Because that's what it normally always was with our music. Yeah. Our music was always looked at like, we would call it the bastard child music for the R&B market. You know, they would be like, why are they getting these guys to touch our records? And I don't want to mention names, but I remember them yelling at us, screaming, how dare you do what you did on our record.
Right, exactly. Yep, exactly.
Yo, but later on, when you got that check, oh man, can you do that again? No. That's a once in a lifetime thing. Because you can't kinetically, you can't do it. It just happened. You weren't even feeling it probably, or you just did what you do, and you can't do that again. It just doesn't work like that.
Exactly.
That's that formula, that moment, you experimenting, all that great stuff that happened. You try to do it again. Yes, Close and Close was huge. Mm-hmm. But just the way things happen, if you didn't do that first record, where would this conversation be now? You wouldn't even mention this. You would have said, well, the record died. And we're on to the next one.
Exactly. And I always call it the magic of the moment. Because whenever you're doing anything creative, you can end up with an accident in the studio that you're like, you know what? You pushed the wrong button at the right time.
Yo, but that's it.
That's it.
Exactly. That's it.
Exactly. You keep that. That's working.
Now, here's a quick story. I don't remember what record this was. One of Shep's mixes. The guy, I don't remember which record, but I remember something with the claps, and he deleted it. Shep went nuts. It was like either that or the computer died and it hit save. It was one of those things, and it happens to the best of us. You don't have that part? Yeah. Oh, good. You were like, oh, guy right there, everybody's dead. They're sick. You don't remember what you played? No, I don't remember what I played. Play it again. That's not it. You know, Hippie, come on. We've been in those sessions, bro. You know what I'm talking about.
Very true. Very true. Yeah, exactly.
How could you do that? I don't know. I didn't hit save.
Exactly.
There was no autosave back then, children. There was no autosave. There was no recalling. There was just none of that. You were doing things as you were doing it. If you didn't record it or save it, it's gone.
Yep. Exactly.
Gone.
That's true. Let's not even talk about floppy disks back then.
What?
It wasn't like now, buddy. You had a floppy disk used to
floppy. And you hear it go like this. You were waiting. Saving everybody. Just go get a coffee or something. It'll come back. It'll be saved. 2 megabytes on a floppy. Wow. We could sample for 8 seconds? Whoa. That's right. All right, we have to now sample the vocals and we're going to drop it back and forth to tape so we can get time out of it, right? We would all be thinking, like, how are we going to make this work? Because we were on limited, and when I say limited budgets, airtight, shoestring, ridiculous nonsense budgets we were working on back then until this whole thing blew up.
And for those of you that don't know, the first samplers that were really we're getting were Fairlights. That was $100,000 investment for a 36-second sample
machine. I know.
That was it.
So you see Herbie Hancock and them? They had that kind of money.
Exactly.
Yo, we were working on, you know what we were working on? The ashes from the ashtray that was thrown out on the back end of the garbage. We were opening up. That's the kind of budgets we were working on.
Yeah.
But we were so thrilled to be working on those records. All of us were. All of us were like, oh my God, what are you working on, Hippie? What is you? I remember we were all talking. Yo, so homeboy's got $1,500. He got $1,500. Like, and then when we heard the big remix money start, remember that? It was like 10, 15, 25, 30, 50, 50,000. For what? 100,000? We will all be like, can't be. No, it happened. It's real. You know, that's the kind of stuff that was going on. And that was all during our time of that house.
Exactly. Yeah. Everything has its peak moment. You know what I mean? Every kind of art form has a peak moment that's going to be nostalgic, but it was also very good for us at that time, you know, financially, you know, spiritually, everything included. There was a time, for us, it was that period. That
Big
period.
time. The golden era.
Yeah.
The golden. So okay. So she wins this R&B things, the awards, gold things, and I remember you got the record too for the amount of sales in Europe and stuff on the record. Where do you go from there? Where's Hippie start to go?
Well, then from there, after we were finishing that and doing some of that stuff, I started doing my own label. So I started with What Is Hip, and I don't really put a lot of stuff out per se with What Is Hip, but I try to put stuff that I like or that I feel is worth putting out. So that's what I've done. I'm not a lot of music, but I've done some stuff on there. But I've also done remixes. I did remixes for a bunch of different people in between. You know what I mean? Things like that. And I still DJ. That's what I do. But in between, it's funny because during all the way up until I would say up until the age of 32, all I did was DJ. All I did was DJ. All my life. That's all I did. I had no other job. That was it. After 32, and I met my girl and we got together, I still DJ all the time, but I would always do sort of other jobs to, make some money. I was lucky. I used to work at MSNBC as an audio guy. So I was at MSNBC when the 2000 elections. I was at MSNBC when 9/11 happened. I was at NBC for all those things. I mean, I was right in the middle of it when those things were happening. And I was just there, as an audio guy, hooking up the mics and the earpieces for what we call the talent. The talent was anybody that came in, that was either a reporter, representative, artist, whatever it was. So I did that, and it's like from that point on, I've always DJed, but I always try to keep those kind of things going. And now in the last 5 years, I ended up working at the library system here in Columbia, South Carolina, because they have a recording studio at my branch. So they were like, when I went and I said, "Oh yeah, I have all this experience with audio and everything," they were like, "Perfect. You're the perfect guy for this."
But I want to also bring up to everybody that in the 90s, and I'm going to give Barbara and Don a big, Barbara Tucker and Don Welch. They brought Hippie in downstairs in the Funk Hut to let everybody, the younger crowd, hear him in New York, because he was a true Jersey legend. But in New York, people had forgotten that he played because he was so long playing in Jersey. So he started to do his mixing in that basement flawlessly with classics, because that was what was the Funk Hut down in Sound Factory Bar. Hippie was doing his thing for a while. He was traveling to Europe and he was getting a chance to play downstairs, and he had a whole new generation of clubbers starting to experience the hippie sound.
It was actually, that was a great time, because I think a lot of great people got DJ down there, and I only DJ down there because Camacho told me, I went to see, because when I went to the Funk Hut, Camacho was the house jock there for them.
Right. For a while. Yeah, he was the man.
Camacho was like, listen, man, play a couple of records. So I threw a couple of records on, I played just a couple of songs for him. And the owner came, check this out. The owner came, I forgot who his name was. And he's like, "What the hell are you doing on my system? You're not supposed to be on my system."
You talking about Jeffrey Rodman or Phil Smith?
I don't know. The guy with the glasses, the
Phil Smith.
Okay. So what the hell are you doing on my system? You can't be playing down here. This is not for anybody to play at. Camacho turned around, almost bit his head off. He said, "Dude, that's my teacher. You don't tell him what he wants to."
He does what he wants to,
whatever he wants to. He's like, you don't talk to him like that. That's my teacher. Don't ever say anything like that at all.
Okay? Maybe Jeffrey Rodman would have done that. Maybe he would have done that, because he was managing the club on Wednesdays. Yeah, that would have been Jeffrey Rodman. At Sound Factory.
Yeah, I mean, and it was funny, but from that point, and then Barbara Tucker got to hear me, and Don, and they were like, we like to do some guest spots, and they wanted me to do guest spots, and like I said, I went to Camacho, and I told him, "Listen, dude, I don't know what's going on, but they want me to do some guest spots and stuff." I told him, "You tell me no, I won't do it," because that's the way I used to do it. The same thing happened to me with Naeem. Naeem took over Docs when I left, but then they wanted me to come back, and I told Naeem the same thing. I said, "Naeem, they want me to come back and play here, but if you don't want me to, I won't do it." But both of them were like, "Dude, just don't worry about it. You can do it. I got other things happening. Do it." Okay. So that's the only reason why I played. I ended up playing because they gave me permission. They said, "You can do it." So that's how I ended up going down there and doing the gigs, because Camacho told me it was okay, and they wanted me to do gigs there. And one thing, like you said, I always Jersey, because New York to me was, they had their own thing happening. You know what I mean? They had their own thing going on. So it never really called me. I had so much work in Jersey that I didn't need to go to New York, honestly, unless I want, like the Limelight, I did it because it was a thing to do. But other than the Limelight, I really didn't play a lot in New York. It was strictly Jersey. You know what I mean? And I had, like New York crowd for Garage and Better Days. I had my crowd in Jersey, so I didn't need a crowd. You know what I mean? I had people that actually appreciated what I did and what I played. So, when that new audience, like you said, that younger audience started.
That core audience, that new audience.
Exactly. It was because of that. Exactly.
I remember it was like, I can remember like yesterday when you started playing downstairs, you were teaching a new set of DJs, just like what Naeem and Camacho experienced watching you. You were doing what you do, and your style of long, what I would call long transition mixing. You would just, and not flawlessly. Everybody used to laugh. I used to just listen and go, he's still hippie. That's hippie. He does what he does, And the others would be like, I can't do that. I said, well, then you need to learn. You need to watch him, and because it's a talent, And I always said that guys that can really mix really well, that's a true talent,
right?
And of course, the others have yelled at me and said, but that's not only part of it. It's also programming, and that as well. You knew how to do because you were there right from the tippy top of it.
Well, programming, I always say I'll take a programmer over a mixer any day.
That was T. Scott.
Yeah, T. Scott or Mancuso. Mancuso doesn't mix at all. But guess what? It's programming.
Oh, one record after another. Perfect.
Yeah, exactly. So programming is everything to me. It really is. Now, the other thing is that besides Mancuso, like I said, I never got to hear Nicky Ciano. But one thing I always did from the beginning, because remember back then, most club jocks and all that were either doing something extra, whether it be drugs or something like that. There was always something helping them get through that night. I always wanted to be an example on the opposite end, because everybody got high back. I was the only one that didn't get high back then.
So how did you, so how would you keep through the night and keep stamina? And what would you do through the night?
Strictly music. I just lived for the music. That was it.
No alcohol either? No alcohol.
I didn't drink. I didn't do any drugs. I didn't smoke cigarettes. I didn't do any of that. It was strictly just the music and me. That was it. And don't get me wrong, I had my, my vices. I like girls, so I have vices and stuff. But it wasn't anything to do with drugs. The girls kept me going. You know what I mean? Girls would come to the DJ booth. Hey, what's happening? Hey, baby, what you doing? What's going on? But other than that, that was it. But I did it because I always felt that doing this, you're always are going to be at some point, if you do it long enough, like anything, an example for a younger generation. So I was hoping to be that kind of thing where they can say, you know what, if he can do it without having to do anything, I can do it. I wanted to be that sort of like positive role model for them to be able to do the music without having to do anything but the music. Because back then, I remember so many jockeys telling me, man, I need this to get to that next level. Like it would take them to a whole different plane. You know what I mean? But I didn't need it for some reason. I just didn't need it. I
think because you were a dancer too.
Yeah, I was.
And that's the key. I mean, I tell this to everybody, when you feel that music go through you, it's either you're playing or dancing, it's a euphoric high. And mind you, you're controlling a big dance floor. What a high that is.
Oh, without a doubt. When you're in the DJ booth and you're controlling, and the thing about it, you get to the point where you know when you can make them scream. I mean, that's control. But they're bumping their heads and they're dancing. And I used to turn around and tell the jock, I said, watch this. And I would go do my next mix. And like on cue, bang, woo, they would scream and holler. That, is control. When you can get to that point where you can control your audience to do that, you're controlling them.
Yeah, see, that's important. And that's a true storyteller. Where you have your euphoric high and you bring them back down, you reset them, you don't want them to go home. Larry was perfect for that. He would say it all the time, watch everybody, watch to see that crowd going home, we'll play their record. And he would play their record, turn them right back around, maybe within another 5 hours.
Exactly.
That's
right. And I love telling the story of Larry. When Larry came to work at the Zanzibar, we got together. We got together and like, let's meet up. So we met up and we went to dinner. He wanted to get a haircut. So I took him to, we used to have a Bamberger's downtown in Newark.
Oh, wow. Bamberger's. Jesus.
Yeah. And they used to have a salon there where I used to get my hair. It used to be like a nice salon. So I took him there. He got his haircut there. And then from there, we hung out and, we talked music and DJ and all that. And one of the things he told me, he said, listen, I don't care what the audience wants. I don't give a shit about the audience, what they want to hear. If I believe in the record and I believe it's good, I'm going to play it. And you have to play it until they get it. That's it. So he was at times, like I used to tell people, he would play a new song and people would look at him like, what are you playing? What is that? But by the 10th time of that night that he's played it, by the end of the night, it was the anthem for everybody in the club. By the end of the night, everybody knew this is Larry's new song. And they were into it, just like he was into it. So that's where the programming comes in. If you believe in a record enough, that you can say, you know what? I know this is a good song.
Has there been any records like that that you had to experience to break to your crowd? Do you remember one that's a standout?
Yeah, believe it or not, to me, World of the Ghetto, George Benson, at first, was extremely difficult for people to get in because of the way it played. It wasn't steady. It would break down into these sort of, soft parts and then build up again. So it took playing it for years and years and years. And then finally, like you say, when I ended up playing at Sound Factory Bar downstairs, playing it again, then it became the song where everybody's like, oh, I love that. It was so popular and so well liked that, Louis Vega went and got, what's his name? George Benson to do a track with him, with the little thing he did, the guitar and the thing. All of that happened right after we started playing that song and brought it back to life. You know what I mean? To that new crowd that you say. It took that long to make that song that popular.
Now, mind you, that's from, let's give the timeline. We're talking 1976, right? World is a Ghetto.
Yeah.
And you're talking like 1994.
Yeah.
So you're talking about 17 years later to bring that record to that level so that the crowd would go crazy playing it there. And then him going, I'm doing this album, New Eureka Soul, and and Elements of Life, all that comes together.
Exactly. Yeah.
Crazy, bro.
I mean, it's just the way it is. Sometimes some songs do take their time. It does take time. But eventually, I always say a song and the audience are just two people trying to find each other.
So let me give you George's response, because I had dinner with George Benson not too long ago. And I asked him about that record. I said, when he said, well, Kenny had the drums playing, okay? That skip sound. And he just said to Louis, listen, let me grab my guitar, just record me. Whatever I do, one take, bro. It was one take he did. That Donny Hathaway remake, boom. They heard that. He heard it back and he said, that's a wrap. He told me just like that. He said, straight up, one take I did it. I played the guitar and I just felt this vibe and it led me to that direction. And that, to me, I said to him, I went like this. I went, yes.
Yeah, but remember, I always tell people, and one thing I love doing is I love history. So as a DJ, I'm always looking at how can I better what I do from learning from the past. I tell people learn all the time. Go learn what vaudeville was. Okay, go learn what vaudeville was. Okay, because vaudeville was a hard audience to perform, and people would do it. Now I tell people this all the time because people are like, okay, why vaudeville? Because vaudeville did this. You had an act. They would hire you for 8 minutes to do your act. Guess what? If your act didn't work, guess what you did? You would change your name,
yes.
something different,
right,
and come back and try to get hired again. So I tell that to people all the time. You're a DJ. You're trying to do your thing. If it doesn't work for you, change your name. You know what I mean? Get a whole new name. Start again. I don't see why not. They do it in clubs. Think about it. They do it in clubs. Most of these clubs in New York have been a different club at one point or another.
Yeah, right. In the same places, in the same spots.
In the same exact spot. Exactly.
But not anymore. Not anymore after Giuliani destroyed it all. But back up to his time, it would be change the name, put new paint, and changed some things around. It was a whole new club. I know.
There's a bunch of jocks that have done that. You know, these people that like Dead Mouse, they were completely something different as a DJ. And then, you know what? They changed their persona. They got a whole new thing going. Bang. Until they find that hit. You can do that with the same thing with your career when you're an artist. You can do the exact same thing.
Well, you have actually proven that because you've revolutionized yourself a few times to stay with the ends without changing your name, but you did some modifications to fit into the times. It's just the way it goes.
Right. Exactly.
You understand that principle, and you're what I call not only just part of the club, but you're in the club. As far you're not only the guy who's to pay commercial. Not only am I the owner of the spot, I'm also one of the members of the club. So I understand that. No, and and the last final question. I mean, you covered a hell of a lot. Where do you see stuff going from here? Beyond, what's the plan? What's your feeling, your gut instinct? What do you want to do? What do I know you're doing the library thing, which is great. So that's a job. We got that.
So I've got July 3rd, I'm doing a gig in North Carolina with I think it's Mike Brown, his name, I believe it is. I'm doing a gig with him. And then September 11th, I'm doing the Weekway Park in Newark, up in Jersey. And I'm going to be celebrating the anniversary of Docs, which is the 45th, and the 42nd of Zanzibar.
Wow.
Those are long anniversaries. And whatever else comes in between, I'll be doing something, I said, we just got out of COVID, so people are just beginning to
I know they're just breathing life all of a sudden. They're calling me and they're calling everybody. And the thing is now they're trying to find clubs to do things because a lot of places are closed.
Exactly.
That's another issue we're all dealing with. It's like, everybody's rushing to want to go somewhere with it. Where the hell are you going?
Exactly. That was true. Very true. Yeah.
Oh, man, brother, man, you are a legend. And we bless you.
I have been around for a while, that's for sure.
I think so. For a minute, you've been around for more than a minute.
I always tell, like I tell people, I always say, I just been DJing 6 months just to keep it fresh. You know what I mean?
Would you rather play vinyl than digital?
Actually, I'm more into moving into the purest sound for the audio. So I love vinyl, but I want to get what the producer would want you to hear. If I was a producer and I had a choice between you listening to a pristine version of my song or the same song in vinyl, I think I'd take the pristine. You know what I mean? As a producer and an artist. In other words, I want to put my best front out to you.
So what are we talking about? Like lossless wave files, those big files? That you rather play the digital file? You rather play the analog tape? What do you want to play?
I would say the wave files. You know what I mean? Or even if we get to the point where we could start playing, the 24 bits and the 192. You know what I mean? Higher files. I would do that. You know what I mean? But at least the wave files. You know what I mean? For now, are fine for me. You know what I mean? I'm fine with that because I really believe that, I don't care who the producer is. They want you to hear the best version of their song. I mean, you don't want to hear, it's great to hear a song, but it really doesn't help the song. You know what I mean? It's really not making the song. It's like saying, okay, so I got these movies, I got this one that has all the scratches on it, and I got a nice pure version. Which one would you like me to release or put out there for you? I think it's going to be the clean one.
Yeah, the 4K version. I want to see when you watch Netflix now, everything is golden, everything looks pretty and clean and fresh. And I don't want to watch an old movie. It looks like it's got, I could barely see the coloring or even see the people's faces. I know. Yeah. That's all right.
I'm one of those. I always believe if you can get to a better sound, hey, eventually it's going to be, just something in our head. And, we can just press a button or think of a song and it'll just pop in our head. We'll get to that point. You know what I mean? You don't even need a player. It'll just be in your head. That's it.
Good Lord Almighty! I know it's going to be that. It's around it's within moments. It's not even around the corner. Within a second, this is going to happen.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But I'll tell you what, you're going to have a lot of work. There's no doubt. It's because as this music thing starts to turn on, people want to be together again, and it is what it is. You'll be banging it out and rocking those parks and rocking everywhere. Watch, it. You'll have that run. You'll run. You know what I'm saying? Amen, hippie to you, brother. You just keep doing what you do and
thank you.
Lead the way for all of us.
Thank you, Lenny. Thank you for inviting me. Thank you for all the.
Oh, it was needed to be done. It's needed to be done. And thank you. And you know, of course, stay safe and be careful out there because you can't be crazy. You know, still kind of like we're a little bit in the in-between stage. But we'll get there.